Okay. So hi, welcome everyone to our the eighth, I think it's the eighth product talk that we have organized. So today's topic is transitioning from project management to product management. I'm pretty sure we get a lot of questions about, hey, what does product management do? Right? What do you define product manager, and then how is it different from project manager and product manager? Aren't they the same, etc.? And then you will get a lot of questions as in like, oh, can I be a product manager when I am actually a project manager, right, etc. So today we will be answering all these kind of questions from two of our awesome speakers that have agreed to join us today. We will come to that later on. So first thing first, I think I would like to introduce about Women Who Code Kuala Lumpur. Can we go to next slide, please, Christy? Oh, can I actually go to next slide? Oh, I can actually go to next slide. Okay. Yep, so Women Who Code Kuala Lumpur. So sorry for that, guys. Yeah. So Women Who Code actually founded in San Francisco. It's a global NGO back in San Francisco, and we have presence all over the world. So Women Who Code Kuala Lumpur is actually founded in 2014, which is quite fairly new. It's only like 7 years. Oh my God, we are almost hitting 10 years. So yeah, so usually we organize a lot of different events and also different workshops targeting to actually allow everyone, right? But then our mission here is actually to empower women in technology field. But we do welcome all the males and also female to join us in this mission, so long that you believe that this thing will benefit you. Yeah. And for Women Who Code KL, we actually have a few tracks. One of the tracks is our software engineering track, where we organize workshop and study groups for technical courses or technical topics all around software development, mobile development, and also website development as well. And then the other track, we do have data science track, where we just about to kickstart some series, something like this product talk as well, learning the lessons from product talks. Yeah, and the third track will be the track that you are right now, is called product track. It's a product management track. So for every track, we do have an organizing team, and for product perspective, this is our organizing team. Next, sorry, I have to learn to press next slide. Sorry, technical issue. Can we go to next slide? Sorry, Christy. Yep. Okay, so sorry, it's the organizing team slides, Christy. Yeah. So this is the organizing team that we have here today. I am Brianna. Sorry for the typo, is double N there. Then we have Vicky, which is not present today, unfortunately. She has some personal stuff to handle today. And we have Lisa, which also will be our moderator of the day. Say hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Yep. And then we have Alicia here. Kim.
Hi.
And also lastly, Christy. So this is the organizing team that make the session happen today and also for the future events as well. And yep, that's all for Women Who Code KL and organizing team. We should really go back to the topic of the day. And first thing first, it will be on agenda. Over to you, Lisa.
Okay, so I mean, we pretty much have the same agenda for all our talks. So if you've attended before, it's the same story. We did our introduction already. After this, we're just going to introduce the speakers and some house rules, and then jump right into the panel. You don't have to key in your questions, ngams, at 2:50. If you have any questions at all, you can key it into the chat. That's not an issue. And in the end, about 3:10, we'll have some fun, quick answering sessions that we've already prepared for the speakers to participate in. Then after that, we'll do a quick wrap up and announce the next series. And so some house rules. Raise your hand if you want to speak, but if you're shy, we accept questions from the chat group as well. So please feel free to type in there, ask as many things as you want. We can't promise that we'll get through all the questions, but we'll try to at least group them and get as many questions out there to our panelists as we can. But if you do feel the burning desire to speak, so please raise your hand and we'll unmute you during the Q&A session, okay? So during the panel, you will not be able to unmute yourself. So please raise your hand and one of our moderators will unmute you. There will be a group photo after the talk. And there has been many instances in the past where we have forgotten to take the group photo. So please, after the panel, stick around so that we can turn on everybody's camera and take a nice group photo after the talk to remember today, okay? And please bear in mind that this session will be recorded because we make the replay available on our YouTube channel for Women Who Code for those of us who could not make it today, okay? Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so these are our illustrious speakers today. We have Kunal and Yingfei. Okay, so Kunal I have worked with before and I'm continuing to work with actually because he leads large-scale transformations with big companies, typically in multiple functional areas like digital, supply chain, ERP, process management. So on the back of a lot of these projects, he's become a passionate advocate of digital transformation, and core to that digital transformation is the transition from project management to product management. So it's quite a hot topic with a lot of companies, including mine. So we're happy to have him here today to speak a lot about that. And on our e-commerce side, we have our strategic project manager from Lazada, Yingfei. She oversees company-wide projects for Lazada directly with the CEO and COO. And in addition to that, she's also got her foot in the local Lazada Malaysian product and tech team for a year to chair and lead a lot of their product development activities as well. So she has got one foot in project management and one foot in product management as well. So we are also very privileged to have her here with us today. So we have two different panelists from two different industries, and we are hoping for an interesting panel as a result. Okay, so shall we get right to it? Yeah? Okay, great. So if we could just stop sharing the slides and we could share our wonderful speakers on video so we can see them all clearly. Okay, looking nice and handsome and pretty. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here today, giving up your Saturday to spend time with us. So let's start with something very simple and very straightforward lah. Okay, so what does project management mean to you in relation to product management? So just to give a perspective on that. So shall we do ladies first? Yingfei, are you okay with that?
Totally.
Cool.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm very honored to be here and share my experience with you. So to the question of what does project management means to me and how is it different from product management? To me, based on my experience in the e-commerce industry and tech industry, especially, project management is where someone has the flexibility to oversee a cross-functional strategy-related projects. So for example, it can be company-wide, it can be a specific functions, but cut across multiple stakeholders. So timeline management is definitely one of the key points in the project management. If I go into product management, in my field and also my experience, product management or so to speak, product manager is someone who is very, very skilled in the specific domain. So bear in mind, because I'm coming from a tech industry, product, especially in the e-commerce field, is the core of the business. It's one of the core business. So when we talk about product, it's literally the buyer app, the seller app, and all the internal product. So it's a very big thing. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, and I imagine actually a lot of the product management and the popularity and the relevance of it has come from the tech industry, has come from these digital products, has come from these platforms, and organizations are actually adopting from these industries best practices from product management. So, and in that view, I mean, Kunal, do you have a perspective of this, maybe from the company side?
I'll add on a little bit to what Yingfei said. I think, before I get into product management and project management, I'll at least tell you how the way I think about the definition of a product and a project to start with, right? So if you think about a project, it's a funded venture with a very clear outcome of what needs to be delivered, and it has a definite start date and an end date. Products are actually, the way I think of products, it's a living entity. It doesn't have a start date and an end date. It's about delivering value to a customer in a continuous fashion, so in smaller increments with no end date. So a product actually never dies. It has a life cycle of its own until at some point a product retires. Right? So I think it's important to just level set on the difference between a project and a product. And what you said, Lisa, I think is very apt. I think in there are three forces kind of coming together right now that we see why product management is becoming quite important. One is uh, the amount of change. So technology waves have never been as short as what it is today. So historically, when organizations went through a change, it was every 10 years, big changes happened, right? From Renaissance to the Industrial Revolution and so on and so forth. Now the changes are happening very fast. Second is the impact of the change. So not only is change happening faster, the change is a lot more profound, right? Think of what Grab and Uber has done to the taxi industry, or what Airbnb does to the hotel industry. And there's so many such examples where the degree of change is massive. And because of that, every company needs to be a BizTech company. And the only way to bring business and technology together in an effective way is to have a product-centric operating model. And so that's kind of the genesis of the key differences between, how I think about product management and product management.
And that's quite interesting because project management, I feel, has a very long and rich history, and it's been around for maybe the last two or three decades. So, and I've not met and recently, especially in IT or the technology industry, I've not actually met someone who did not get confused between the two terms, right? So people just refer to project managers these days generically as PMs, but they do a little bit of project management and they do a little bit of product management, right? Because timeline is still important, budget is still important, but at the same time, they expect PMs also to be user-centric, to research, to do ethnography on their users, to understand the context, the business domain. So do you think that this is something that has been added on to our responsibilities, or they are actually two distinct roles, do you feel?
If I can respond to that, Lisa, I think there are two distinct roles. I think one of the things which is quite important is when you think about the differences between projects and products. Projects served the need of the business. Products served the need of the customer. In projects, often IT was accountable to the business. In product management, IT is accountable with the business. And this whole notion of, in project management, the way you measure value was budget, scope, and timelines. And in product management, the way you measure value is business outcomes, right? And what did the customer get, and was it valuable for them? So I think they're quite stark differences. You're absolutely right, Lisa. I think it's very confusing, and because we often use the same acronyms of PMs, it becomes even more confusing, if you ask me. But I think they're quite distinct, and that's one of the biggest challenges. It's a different mindset. Project management and product management are different. It's not incremental. I think they are quite starkly different to do it right.
Yingfei, do you also have this problem in Lazada? Because we struggle with it a lot in corporate Malaysia, especially. Yeah, and it is actually difficult to split the two into different roles, and people always get confused between the two.
Right. I would say in the e-commerce industry or tech industry per se, project manager and product manager, they can be quite seamless in a way that they do not have to be super distinct. I'm sharing from my experience, for example, when I first started in Lazada, my first project is Lazada Wallet. But because Lazada Wallet as a strategy, it itself is a product centric. So that means that as looking at the project point of view, I will cover end to end. So from like what you mentioned, in terms of timeline management, in terms of planning, in terms of execution, in terms of expansion, and basically drives the value to the business. But however, if I do not have the enough understanding on the product itself, it is very hard for me to actually milk the benefits to the max for both the buyer as well as the business. Hence, I think in the tech industry, for example, when product is one of the core, or I would say key to the tech industry, project manager, especially in the strategy level, has to have sufficient knowledge about product and how product works. Then only we will be able to bring the value and translate that to the product manager in our company. Well, product manager here in the company is that the people who own the roadmap. Own the roadmap meaning to say that because, for example, if you look into e-commerce, when we talk about product, we talk about multiple pillars. The main one would be the buyer, the seller, and in the middle is all the internal products. So internal products can be logistic and etc. So we're looking at this. Every single 3 pillars, they have a sub pillar. So for example, if I do a loyalty program, it is a promotion domain, and that product manager will fully own the roadmap of the promotion domain. So that is in my opinion, is different, but at the same time is also quite interlinked. Yeah.
Okay. So just out of curiosity, when you have positions or when you hire for Lazada, right? Do you hire separately for project managers versus product managers?
Yes. Yes, I would. Yeah. So I think the expectation in terms of hiring of 2 different roles are very clear. Project manager, we are looking at more, the stakeholder management in terms of understanding of the strategy and etc. In terms of product manager, when we hire, we are expected to run on the day one. So the understanding of a specific product, the skill sets required become very, very niche.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah, of course, Brianna.
Yes. Yeah, I think from what I understand is Kunal, you said that. I mean, that's what I catch. Kunal said that project management actually focus on delivering value to the business, right? And then for product is more on delivering value to the customer. So in that point, right, at one point of time, there will be clashes between things that you need to do in order to get a balance out of it, right? And I know, Yingfei, from your experience, you do have double role at one point of time where you have to jargon on the timeline and also jargon from the features that you are bringing value to customer. And as you said, right, how do you actually balance out these both when you are handling both positions? Because like we do have position for both ends. It's just that when you are handling one at your own, how are you actually juggling these things actually?
To be honest, aligning objectives is very key. For us, when we bring the value to the customer, we bring the value to the business. And in terms of customer, in our opinion, is both the buyer and also the sellers. So that is essentially the core of the business. So aligning the objectives are very key. Once the objectives are aligned, and then managing product and managing projects become more seamless.
Yeah, so I guess and taking lessons from the tech industry or industries that are newer, a lot of traditional industries, like mine, because I'm in oil and gas, and we struggle to with this concept because we want our project managers to behave like product managers, but at the same time, we don't want them to let go of project management principles. It's not like the budget is not important. You still have to hit your deadlines, and you still have to do the whole Autoboss thing. So it's almost like, do your project management responsibilities, but do this as well, right? So I suppose that brings us to our transition question. So I mean, Kunal, so what do you think? I mean, in terms, can a project manager be a product manager? Can we do both roles? Can we manage that transition?
So the short answer is yes, but let me just take a step back, Lisa. On the previous question you asked of, what are the characteristics of product managers? So there was a recent research done. I don't have the specific source, but I'll tell you what I kind of took from it was there were 4 traits that make a very, very good product manager. And when I actually read that, I was pretty amazed with what the responses were. The 4. So the number 1 was creativity. Number 2 was social skills. Number 3 was analytical skills. And number 4 was empathy. And so when you think about those 4 traits that research says is what are the traits of the best product managers, and when you start overlaying that, okay, do I even look for this in a project manager? The often answer is no. Now, what's in common is the analytical skill, because even project managers, to your point, right, it's a very analytical driven schedule, budget, timeline, scope management. So that's commonality. But I would say the way even the analytical skill needs to work in product management is on value. Am I getting the value and the ability to challenge everything you do? Why do I need to do something, and is it going to drive value? And if it doesn't, or your initial hypothesis doesn't, is invalidated, the ability to pivot, which requires creativity and the right, the social skills is very important, because in a product management role, you're working in a very collaborative environment across functions, versus in traditional project management where it was IT managing their scope and then giving something to the business. So that's just a response on the initial point, Lisa. Now the piece on the transition, and it's a great question, and the answer is yes, because it would be, I don't think it's practical to imagine that product managers come from a completely different source of pool than where project managers come. So there is commonality of managing stakeholders, managing to timelines, even though product management is always more effective when it's done in an agile method. I would say, when we think about what are the key challenges of this pivot from project management to product management, first is focus on the customer, not on delivery. So that's first. You just have to have this mindset of focusing on the customer and not on delivery. It's to be strategic about product features and what value they drive and the ability to measure that. And the biggest is this mindset shift. It takes a lot to get project managers to unlearn that it's not just about scope, delivery timelines, estimates, etc. Right? You have to have the ability and the nimbleness to move fast. I think the whole mindset shift is probably where we've seen the biggest challenge that it requires. The other piece is not just an individual thing, Lisa. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the same industry as you, in oil and gas and in other slower moving like chemicals and utilities. It's the culture that we make people operate in. There's a tendency that there's a notion that, hey, we need to do product management. Let's get our project managers to be product managers. But if the environment, the leadership doesn't recognize what it means, and you create a culture that fosters that, it just doesn't happen, right? So it's not just an individual transition, it's an organizational transition that many companies fail to understand the gravity of that. It's a cultural shift, which is quite important.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I feel that for project managers, right, for all the flack that project managers get, actually I think most of us have experience with the fact that good project managers, right, they manage on budget, on time. But great project managers, right, they have negotiation skills, they have social skills, they are creative, they manage on value rather than scope. So I think, whenever that's, I guess that's also my personal perspective on this, is that a great project manager, right, already has product management skills. And it's not a huge leap for this person to actually transition into that role. And actually, for all great project managers are already playing that role, because I cannot imagine that a project manager would continue to be successful and grow in his career if he didn't talk about value, if he didn't foster relationships with the client and with the users, and things like that. So, sorry, just to come back to the original question for Ying Fei. Can a project manager, be a product manager, in terms of, is it an easy transition?
Well, to be honest, in my perspective, I think it's definitely a project manager can become a product manager. And whether the transition is easy, I think it depends on individuals as well. So if you come from a fully project management background, and you are becoming a very good project manager, like what Lisa mentioned, you go beyond just the implementation timeline and etc. Step into the creativity, the negotiation skill sets and stakeholder management, etc., and you basically step into more towards the product manager, then it really depends on how deep is the knowledge about that specific topic or that specific domain per se. So in the example of, if you want to look into bringing the values to the consumer in the e-commerce world, for example, and consumer, say like if the statement is that consumer want to buy cheaper price, for example, buy the same thing at a cheaper price, and that will drive the value for the business, then the solution is definitely on what can actually contribute to cheaper price. For example, promotion, the price cut, the voucher, and etc. And there's a lot of things that we can do. However, a project manager can decide that strategy and also to work out the entire framework. The project manager, in order to become a project manager has to have very deep knowledge about a promotion. So not just how it affects the industry, affects the buyer and the user experience, and also a more technical side. For example, how they can bring this business language to the tech language when they talk to the developers. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think that ability to translate well to your users is like extremely important in terms of communication. So I guess maybe the question on a lot of people's minds, when they attend talks like this, is that maybe some of you are looking for a career change. Maybe some of you are wondering, what's more attractive, which PM is actually more relevant to the industry moving forward. Where should I pivot my career? So, from your perspective, right, do you think that people who are looking either to apply to product or project management roles now as fresh graduates, or people who are already in some existing role in the organization, maybe a project manager, should I invest the time and the effort in building product management skills? And does doing something like that help me to future-proof my career? What do you think?
It's such a great question, Lisa, because I had a very similar conversation, intellectual, with a client, chief HR officer, actually 2 weeks ago, and where we landed through the discussion, it was just a free-form discussion, was with what's happening with technology today, we're seeing this phenomena where project management the need for project management is going to be senior project managers who are managing highly complex, multiple products or massive engagements. And so the need of project managers doesn't go away. It just gets more elevated into a higher degree of seniority. Because a lot of the more simpler stuff, because of this trifecta of degree of change, the pace of change, and everything becoming biz tech, is going to get executed in a product-oriented manner. So you're going to see this explosion of need of product managers that can continuously build, evolve products. And then there'll be this layer of fewer but very senior project managers that need to orchestrate across all these multiple projects or products, or how different programs kind of stitch together. So to answer your question, yes, I think investing in product management is critical. Running projects in the digital world, when most organizations are trying to move digital, becomes very difficult in doing it in the old way. And if you do it in the old way, what you lose out on is the ability to drive value, and more importantly, because of this change, this world of, hey, let me set requirements, and 9 months later, what I decided is going to happen, it just doesn't happen. So you have to be in a product-oriented model to be able to adjust to these changes that happen at a much more rapid level now than they ever did before.
Ying-Fei, thoughts?
I think it's quite, I agree with Kunal, to be honest. So if a project manager and also the environment for project managers does not cultivate the agility for changes, even though the idea is to go into, deeper into product management, it's tough, to be honest. if a project manager unable to gain the deeper knowledge in a specific topic or specific domain, I would say, it is also tough. So I think it really depends on the exposure that's given for the project manager as well. How flexible is this person can gain the relevant skill set, gain the relevant knowledge so that they can go deep into a specific product. Yeah.
Okay, I think I wanted to bring it back to the transitioning portion, right? I think I get it from you and Kunal saying that transitioning from project management to product management is not impossible, right? There are a few traits that Kunal has brought up too. So one of it would be like the empathy, which is very important in a product traits. And then we have like creativity and analytic skills as well, and also the people skills that you guys have been talking about, right? But I do come to realization, I don't think transitioning from project to product is easy, because I think one of the participants here, Hayslick, sorry if I mentioned your name wrongly, he do mention that he disagree with that too, because some of the traits don't come naturally. Like some people, they are just don't have the empathy built in them, and the creativity as well, right? So I think I would like to throw the questions out to Ying-Fei and Kuna, based on your experience or people that you have come across. Do you think all these traits can be built, or like is it coachable, or like it's really like you can cultivate it in person?
So yeah, I think it's a good question, definitely. So I think also it's the same, I would say similar answer. If the environment cultivates that kind of changes, cultivates that kind of creativity, definitely. And also it depends on the individual. Say like if, for example, if a person, I would say person A that has a very strong project management background, coming into an environment where project and product are interchangeable. If this person decided to stick on the own way, then it's a bit tough, quite tough, right? But if this person is fascinated with the changes and able to follow the changes flow, you know, be flexible, be creative. I think even though a person may not start from a very creative thinking kind of background, in the environment, it will certainly shape the person. And if the person is open-minded enough, it will certainly learn about the environment and therefore move into a more agile kind of working environment. And not just that, I think, it is also, I'll share from my own perspective. If when I look when I look for a strategy project manager per se, or when I look for a product manager, but I'll start with strategy project manager first. One thing that I will definitely look at the trait is the willingness to learn and the willingness to unlearn. So this is the key trait that I look into hiring strategy product manager. To be honest, is a bit tough to say that we can hire from scratch. Product manager, as I mentioned, in the industry that I'm in, is expected to run from day one. So definitely you will need some platform in order for you to build up the knowledge as well as the skill sets. And that is where strategy project manager in the tech industry becomes a very, very important door to, when you have sufficient knowledge, you want to deepen it further and become a product manager.
Yeah. So that's interesting also, you know, I mean, thinking about whether these are the kinds of skills that we can cultivate, because that's exactly what we're trying to do in my company, my industry. And I guess, you know, now we invest so much in product owner training, actually. And the interesting thing that I find is that a lot of product owner training on the market is actually intertwined with agile scrum training, you know. So since we're talking about transition and investing in yourself and, you know, maybe career changes into product management, right, is the whole concept of agile methodology and product ownership and management, right, are they intertwined? Can you do one without the other in our context, do you think?
They're definitely intertwined, right? So the way you execute effective product management is by being an agile organization. And I think it depends on what type of kind of agility you're trying to drive, and whether you want to be safe or distributed agile, etc., doesn't necessarily matter as much. But agile is very much intertwined. Agile DevOps is very much intertwined with how you execute product management. The point actually that you made, Lisa, is very interesting on when we do when organizations invest in training product managers with with methodologies like, hey, you need to understand agile, etc. Why do organizations yet not get the full value that product management is supposed to unlock? And I'll tell you, it's having done this across 4 very large organizations across 3 continents over the last 5 years, the 3 things that I've observed as potential barriers, or not potential barriers, to why they haven't got it is the percentage of people that organizations try to make product managers is always 80% coming from IT, 20% coming from the business. That itself is the wrong sourcing pool of product managers. Well, I shouldn't say wrong, but it's the wrong mix of, if you want effective product managers, it should be 50-50 or even more people actually coming from the business or the function than people coming from IT. So one is, where do you source this talent from? Second is the notion of what type of training is required. And, Agile and all is, you have to do that. But what we're seeing more and more is a need of behavioral experiments. You have to do some experiments with these individuals in very short fused ways to make them understand, what does this mindset shift mean? So I'll give you an example. At a very large shoe manufacturer based out of Europe that was trying to do this massive pivot from being a project-oriented organization to a product-oriented organization, one of the experiments they did was they took a team leader who was managing 15 people and said, for the next 1 week, let your team make every decision you would make. So you just assume that you're not working and let your team make the same decisions on your behalf. And at the end of this 2-week experiment, what she realized was, and without any there was no, hey, let me go ask the team lead. That is the team trying to get the same question that the team lead would have got and trying to answer that in a very real context. At the end of the 2 weeks, what she found was 90% of the decisions that her team made would have been exactly the same that she would have made. And what that experiment told her was, am I empowering my team in the right way, or should I be focusing on other things? So this was just one example of an experiment that was done to start creating a very different mindset for individuals on, if you truly want to make this pivot, how you empower your teams, how decisions need to get done is in a very different fashion than what it was in the past. I think the behavioral experimentation is a trend that we are seeing more and more, Lisa, that organizations are taking. And they're starting from senior leaders and saying, hey, we need to make our senior leaders also think differently. And so what are those experiments that you do on a very continual basis to kind of drive this? So that's the second thing. The first was, where do you source people from? Second is, the ability to do behavioral experimentation. And the third thing is, oftentimes we say in product management, what you're doing is you're buying capacity. You're not, it's the capacity of my team is what I source for, and that capacity of my team needs to go deliver, whatever user stories or epics they are. The other trick, or the other kind of big learning we've had, is you have to think of your capacity in a way to improve 2 things. One is you're improving the productivity of the team itself. So if you think about, again, in the agile world, the concept of epics, that you have, how do you increase the number of epics that your team is able to deliver? And then second is, within those epics, how do you increase the value that's delivered to the business? And a lot of times, those 2 parameters are not looked at very effectively or in a very deliberate fashion by many organizations. The assumption is, hey, we have self-forming teams, they'll improve, we'll keep looking at velocity, etc. But it's not just velocity, it's also velocity, but how many stories actually delivered the right business value, which is quite important. So I would say those are the 3 key observations I've had, Lisa.
Thanks, Kunal. And you touched on a few interesting topics there that I also want to explore with Ying Fei, because obviously, for people like me and Kunal, we work around structures like, very bureaucratic organizations, many levels of leadership, lack of empowerment. We cannot even approve to buy a pencil. Okay, so it has to go to God knows where. Okay? So these are the restrictions that we operate under in many GLCs, in many conglomerates, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, is this something that in your industry you struggle with as well? And is it a barrier also for product managers to make decisions that matter and have value? Do you think?
I think it's a very good question, which is why I think in the very beginning, I would like to emphasize that my sharing is always because of my own industry, right? It's a tech industry. My industry doesn't start without product. Without product, we are not a business. So definitely product has been there from day one. And to your question where I think because product is the core of the business. Therefore, a project, to be a good project manager, the project manager has to have certain understanding about product. And whether is it empowerment? Is it flexible? Definitely in tech industry is more flexible. And because also at the pace that we are running is fast, we cannot have a situation where our team is not able to make decision. So definitely we need to make decision. Definitely we need to push forward a certain roadmap for progress, be it is from a product or from the project point of view. So I'll give an example. For example, in my opinion, a good product manager as well as a good project manager, but they don't work well. Okay. An example of a project manager, because it manages a timeline and stakeholders management very well. And the product, so this person is considered as a good project manager. Okay, management, the timeline, everything is on the point, and then the action plans is clearly stated and shared with the stakeholders management, no issue. Good project manager. Come to the product manager, very good also. Deep understanding about their own domain, able to know what is the roadmap in the 10 years and still stay relevant to the business, creates the value to the business, also very good. But if these two people work together and don't understand each other, it's very bad for the entire company. Yeah.
Also, I think even you're trying to say that is it from your experience? You have been in product and project, right? So does any of this experience has actually helped you in terms of what you are doing right now? Like how has
I will share my experience. I joined my company as a strategy project manager. And then I spent 1 year leading the product team. And then now I'm back to strategy project. Why I do this shift is that I don't see much difference when I switch from project to product and back to project, to be honest. The value that the company expect me to bring to the table is roughly the same. And also, this is why I think for my personal experience, the transition becomes easier because of also the core of the business is very product centric, right? So I cannot make a good strategy decision without understanding of the product. So this is basically already a baseline understanding from an expectation to me. In my project time, I'm able to oversee a couple of things like the buyer side, the seller side, and also logistics and etc. And then those projects doesn't have to be product centric. Also, it can be operation centric, improvement, etc. When I go to product, we really look deep into enhancing a certain product, for example, very detailed, very deep. But if stay at that role and not able to see a bigger picture, is not very good for the business also. Whereas a project is able to see a big picture, a product will see the depth of a certain domain. And these two people have to understand each other and work together. They cannot be very strong on their own position and try and do not want to cross to the other side to understand their perspective. So it's very important that a good project manager and a good product manager understand each other's position and also work towards the direction. And hopefully the environment allows it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe core to that understanding and having empathy for each other's roles, right, is the rotation that you just described. You know, actually, it's something that we want to do in corporate as well, because we know that some roles are not as suitable for product management as, you know, and they emphasize more project management. Because if you think about the diversity of things that people need to deliver in the project or product management space, right, it becomes very relatable when you talk about a platform, an e-commerce platform like Lazada. But if the person is delivering, let's say, a networking solution, cabling, telephony, you know, then the product is already off the shelf. You are there to install it and make sure that the customer is happy, right? But the product, the features, not much you can do with it lah. So, but in that sense, you still want people to talk about value, right? You still want them to engage. You still want the users to be left happy. You still want, you know, people to have the best telephony experience or the best Wi-Fi experience that you can. So, you know, there are different product and project management, I think, values and principles to emphasize. And I think I absolutely think that rotation, right, that the one that you just described is a great way for us to think about how to do transition for people thinking about this. And speaking of which, we have a question from the floor. Okay, people get so excited about product management and hearing you guys talk about it, they're like, where can I sign? Why can I sign? You know, I want to go product management. So we have a question saying that if someone is thinking about transitioning from a project to product, do you think it would be easier to make that transition within the same company, or should I just, you know, quit and try with another company that is known for product management? I mean, this is a personal perspective, of course.
You know, I'll tell you at least my thoughts, and I've seen this at multiple of the clients that we serve, is it's easier to do it in your own organization. And to one of the points that Yingfi made, to be a product manager, you need to have some domain experience of the product. And oftentimes when you've been a project manager in an organization, you know, you've built that institutional knowledge of the product or the various products or processes, etc. So it makes the transition easier to becoming a product manager within your same organization, because you take that institutional knowledge along and then you go deeper in that, and then you have to unlearn certain things that you learned during project management, have a good attitude, be open-minded, be ability to manage change very differently. But to answer your question, Lisa, I think I've seen it to be easier to go from within the same organization.
I have the same answer as Kunal, but hopefully the environment allows that as well. So I think it very much depending on a personal desire to make the changes, and also to assess whether the environment allows it or not. So yeah, that's my answer. Yeah.
Yes, totally agree. And I can empathize. I mean, because I can empathize with how difficult it is when I watch some of my project managers trying to behave like product managers to a business that doesn't understand what they're trying to do. You know, they say that, oh, you have value to introduce this feature. Why can't I do this? And the business goes, because it's in the statement of work that you need to deliver these 10 things. What are you talking about? So yeah, I guess, you know, the answer is that, you know, if you're in an environment in a company that's transitioning and it's conducive for you to adopt that role effectively, then by all means stay, right? It's an easier path, I guess.
Yeah, if the environment is conducive, definitely I think internal transfer from project to product is definitely easier. Yeah. But my tricks is my personal tricks in this you know, the transition from project to product or product to project, is that try not to think that they are too different.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So actually from how Yingfei is describing it, it doesn't seem like it's a lot of difference. I mean there are differences like where one is about product prioritization and another one is about timeline, but then like what you say, agility about it, being adaptable to changes, and also all the agile methodologies that's bringing into the picture right now, and also together with the understanding about both roles and how do you guys work together. Those are very important among both, between two roles as well, right? So yeah,
I think
sorry, I stopped that. Yeah, it's anticlimax. Lost track.
But okay, hang on. Let me ask something. Okay lah. Maybe this is not the most important thing to have a fulfilling career, but it's something that everyone takes into consideration. Okay, so from your perspective, right? Do project manager or product manager jobs pay more in the long run? What do you think? I mean, again, it's a
perspective.
Yeah, career prospects.
Yeah,
From a compensation perspective, what do you think?
Good point. Of course, in my industry, a project manager is valuable. Product manager is very valuable because
Okay.
again, it's also the knowledge of the domain, and knowledge of the domain detects the roadmap of the product. And we're talking about in tech industry, we're talking about whether this domain or the roadmap is still relevant in 10 years' time, or even it can be shorter, but this evolution of the roadmap has to be always stays relevant to a market. And therefore, having that knowledge makes the product manager valuable in this era and in the specific industry. Not a general statement though. So this is just, again, to remind everybody, is that I'm speaking because of it's a tech industry.
True.
I'll tell you my perspective, and this is really a very personal perspective, is I don't think there's a big change or big difference in compensation at a base level for product managers and product managers when you get started. However, I think the propensity of career paths for product managers tends to be different than the career path of a project manager. And the reason is, a good product manager thinks of himself or herself as the mini CEO of their product. So they're already thinking about, how do I commercialize my product more? How do I get more customers for my product, right? How do I drive more value for my product? And therefore, what all technical things need to happen? Whereas in a project manager, you're always trying to balance scope, timeline, budgets. And so it's a different career path. So I've seen the trajectories of product managers going more into business leadership roles and project managers going more into finance leadership roles. So that's just a perspective of, it's a difference in career path that tends to happen based on what those two roles inherently make a person do.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So, okay, we're coming up on the hour now. So maybe I'll just ask like one last question. So for maybe something that's a little bit more personal to everyone. What advice do you have for people wanting to be product managers and to be able to excel in that when they actually take on the role? Advice to yourself, maybe as well.
I would advise that always stay open-minded and willingness to learn, be it in a project role or product role, as long as you have building up the knowledge, building up the skill sets. To be honest, it doesn't really matter where I sit, to be honest. The most importantly is that I'm able to bring the value to the company. So that is my own learning and also advice for myself.
Yeah, I think I would say quite similar, right? I mean, the one thing that I will tell all of you all is the pace of change today is much slower than the pace of change will be tomorrow. So, we have to be able to adapt change very rapidly and adapt ourselves personally, and therefore having a growth mindset to continuously learn. And, to the point that she made of having an open mind to unlearn and relearn is extremely important.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry. I'm just noticing that we have one or two questions from the chat, which I think I should get to. We got a little bit more time, so we're all right. Okay, so Kunal, you mentioned, that the mix of, having a disproportionate amount of product managers coming from IT versus the business in companies that are embarking on product management. What about where IT hires from in terms of, our product managers? Do you have a view on that?
I'm sorry, where IT hires from?
Product managers from. Where should IT be hiring product managers from? I mean, if they're not growing it from within.
I mean, I think, again, from an IT perspective, if you think about a typical product portfolio of, large organizations, you will have a set of products which are business facing and a set of products which are IT facing, right? To your point, Lisa, things like telephony, networks, et cetera, are still our IT facing products. Where typically I've seen IT be successful in sourcing product managers are obviously from the internal pool of lead developers, project managers, and then similar ones that they would find that same type of category of profile from outside. Is where, or in some cases, I've seen some IT organizations go and take business people and put them in these roles, because it creates this healthy tension of a business person not necessarily understanding telephony, but the business person knowing that when I was a consumer of telephony, I hated the experience. So now let me do all the things that I need to without, and also so they're able to direct their technical team very differently so that the experience for the user is quite different. So I've seen organizations do that experiment where they take a completely non-technical person who's been a consumer of a technical service and make them a technical, an IT product owner. And it creates a very healthy tension in an organization.
Cool. Oh, okay. So we have a question for you, actually. We have another question for you. So how do you get product and project managers to coexist peacefully when they actually have different KPIs and, different goals to beat?
Yeah.
It's such a great question because it's not easy. Organizations that have sort of cracked that is less than, it's a great question, but I don't think the answer is just on product managers and project managers. It actually starts from a leadership perspective of having a balanced scorecard that everybody is driving towards. I'll tell you one of the things I saw when I visited the Singapore Airlines office several years ago when I was doing my executive MBA. There's only one KPI when you enter the Singapore Airlines kind of headquarters, which is the capacity utilization of their flight, of their entire fleet of flights. That's the number one KPI that they care about. And everything, product KPIs, value that you deliver for each product, whether what projects need to be delivered, what the cost of that, it all lines up to that one single KPI. So organizations need to have a North Star scorecard where everything maps up to. And when that happens, the disconnects that typically happen between product KPIs and project KPIs get reduced quite significantly. They're not when the overall scorecard is very unclear. And many organizations don't have that overall scorecard. So you see that tension exists and actually proliferate more and more. So I would say the remedy to that is you need to have a more macro scorecard that that everybody in the organization is aligned to.
How about from the working level wise? Like, I think these questions, maybe Yin-Fei, you can help to answer that too. So like, Yin-Fei, you have been talking about there are no differences between two roles because you have been doing both project and product management role of it, right? So when you say that the both of them can work together and everything will be good, other than like what Kunal said, the leadership and having a very beautiful scorecard that is balance out both things, right? What about from the working level, like from your perspective, right, in your view, how do you, what are the advice that you can give in terms of like getting the project manager to support product manager or vice versa? Like, do you have timeline in your mind when you are doing the product prioritization? Or when I'm building my timeline, I think about the value to the customer? I'm not sure about that, yeah.
So I think again, I think my trick is always not to overthink the differences between both.
Okay.
From a product or project side, in order to have a seamless communication and bring the value to the business, definitely stay open-minded and try to understand each other. Aligning the business objectives and then understanding each other's strength and how to complement each other. If you ask me, project and product, they should not be at opposite end. They should not be. I think there's one person asking whether it's a cannibalization or not. It's definitely not. If you stay open-minded, it's actually an amplification. They are each other's factor, right? To basically multiply the strength of each other. I would just again emphasize that the it is really much depending on a person itself. If you have an agile environment, but you do not have the agile personality, it's a bit tough to switch from either one or the other. So having the mindset to learn and unlearn, be agile into a different kind of situation, then the transition would be a lot easier from the project to product. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, we are doing very well. We made it through all the questions from the floor, I think. Very nice. Very nice, guys.
Let's see if there's any more.
Well, there was one question that we skipped from a company perspective, because we discussed it from an individual perspective, transitioning into the role, should I invest what I do? But from a company perspective, let's say that I had a company, right? And I was thinking about trying to pivot my project managers towards this direction. Are there any key considerations that I should take into account to invest in my people to make that shift? Is it suitable for all companies? Everyone should do that, or is it just suitable for some? What do you think?
Let me hit the second part of the question first, Lisa, and then I'll come to the previous one. I would say companies that are going through the maximum change, product management is a necessity. It's not a luxury or should I. It's a question of, how fast can you get there? And it's really because, the days of, and again, I'm talking more from large enterprises perspective, the days of running 9-month, 1-year projects with the 2-month or a 3-month requirement phase, and then 6 months later, someone gets to see the product. I mean, those days are just gone because the environments today don't allow for that, right? Either the business conditions or what the customers of most organizations are asking for. That everybody wants the best user experience. And in fact, one of the reasons why product management is becoming so important is the battlefield today for businesses is experience. That is the battlefield that you have to win. And to drive the right experience within your products only happens when you can build things iteratively. And to build things iteratively, you have to be in a product kind of centric organization, right? So that's some of the kind of the whole chicken and the egg, but it's really the imperative of why product management is so important. The other question that you asked me is, should you, how quickly do you pivot, or how quickly do you get your people to get there? I think it's a function of what the business ambition is in terms of digitalization. I would say all organizations need to start making that pivot, whether they're doing it at scale or not, and also understand it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes the question I get asked is, hey, we have 100 project managers. If we're doing this massive digital transformation, can we make them all 80 of them product managers in a month? No, it doesn't happen that fast. And secondly, to actually execute products in a very strong product-centric way takes 8 to 9 months. So this is not an overnight journey. The whole going from a traditional model to pivoting on value to doing agile properly is typically an 8-month journey for most large organizations. So that's the other thing I've seen is, these things don't just happen overnight.
Do you think this is also relevant for companies that produce physical products, not digital? I mean, I know we're called Women Who Code, but what if you make cakes? What if you're a baker? What if you build things for cars or tractors or even buildings?
Absolutely. And it again goes back to experience, right? It goes back to experience and the need to produce things that you're rapidly getting feedback much early on in your development cycle than you would after that whole structure has already been done, right? So this whole need of getting feedback early, getting the customer at the heart of your experience and using those demand signals to develop, whether that's software or it's a hardware or it's a building or it's a cake, whatever, product management gives you the ability to do that. That I think, project management in the old way of, running multi-month or multi-year projects just did not or does not.
Cool. Yingfei, any thoughts?
Yes, when Kunal is giving the perspective, his opinion, and then I was also thinking, although I may not be able to give from a industry point of view, I can only imagine. This is what I think. So in a traditional, I won't say traditional, in a more conventional business model per se, where digital or technology is not the core, going into a model where digital or technology is becoming more and more important. I think usually when we talk about this, right, is the business itself, the fundamental of business itself does not necessarily change, but the delivery of that would change. So what I mean is that, for example, even in the e-commerce point of view, we are still doing selling and buying. So the selling side, of course, the seller sells, and then the buyer is buyer buy. And e-commerce is no different than a mall. We are just a mall, right? We are a mall, but the digital mall. But what it means here is that whatever in between, connecting these two, selling and buying, is the infrastructure and also the lead time. So imagine this is buying and this is selling, right? And this is all the middle. Like you can be a conventional business like a mall. It can also be e-commerce where it links both. But here we are talking about shorten the lead time and whatever and enhancement, whatever that is in between. And this is where I think, number one, whether the company is ready for that or not. Number two, ready in a form of mindset is definitely number one. Culture change, infrastructure investment in this, and then we can talk about changing the stuff to become from model A to model B. So if the company is not ready, and the company is trying to move it from A to B, in the middle, you probably number one, I think, hit a lot of walls, and then may not necessarily go to from A to B, probably take a longer time also, and also might lose talented people. So I think this one has to be, in my opinion, is just carefully thought through. Yeah.
Understand. Cool.
Okay.
We have managed to get through so much. So now we're moving to the fun questions section, which Brianna will facilitate. You guys got your pen and pencil ready? So for those of you doing this for the first time, Brianna's going to ask a series of lightning quick questions, and our panelists are going to write their answers down and show them to the audience at the same time. So they won't be able to see each other's answers before they do it. So, Brianna, if you want to take it away.
Yep, thanks. And FYI, guys, the speakers don't know the questions beforehand too. So it will be really on the spot and like straight come directly from their mind. Okay, so the first question, Kunal and Yingfei. If you woke up tomorrow, right, transform into a young fresh grad, right, start from fresh, and you have 2 job offer, which is either product management or project management, which one would you pick? You have 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Show us your answer. Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting. Oh, wow. Yingfei picked project. How come?
I definitely pick project because I think project will allow me to have a big picture point of view, and then I'm able to learn from multiple functions, etc. I think as a fresh grad especially, going deep into a product may not necessarily be very good. So this is just my personal opinion. Having a big picture, building up the big picture mindset, I think is more important, because I think as a fresh grad, you still have like 40 years.
40 years. Yeah.
Do not
need under 60,
okay. So like casting the net while working along different business domains. So that is an interesting perspective. Kunal, doing it for the money, right?
No, I actually think millennials today have, because they've been brought up in a world of rich user experience. So everything has to be seamless experience. I want to be connected all the time. You get influenced by social influencers and so on and so forth. So that mindset of delivering experience, of what a good experience is comes a lot more innate to them than it does to people from the previous generation. So I actually think for them to be more effective product managers, I think the mental shift is less drastic. So, and I think product managers are cooler than project managers. That's just my.
Thanks for that. We have to crop this out. Okay. Questions number two. Okay. So now, regardless of what role are you guys in right now, accident or disaster really happen during a timeline perspective, right? So would you choose, both are bad, right? Would you choose either delay delivery timeline just due to some of the feature may not be built correctly or etc., or loosen up your acceptance criteria on some of the features to meet delivery timeline? 3, 2, 1. A, Yingfei say delay the delivery timeline. Hold on to the grid. Oh, we both have the same one. Yep. I think I totally do agree with that. Any yeah, anyone want to elaborate on that portion?
For me, if you put the wrong product in front of the customer, you'll never get the customer ever again.
Exactly. Totally agree.
Yeah.
It also depends on the acceptance criteria that you write, right? But some of the product, right, they just write a lot of the criteria. There's like even small things, they also put it down in the acceptance criteria. I think that portion we can have some linearity on that, right? Saying that. Okay. Next one. This come to the more enjoying portion. Which one do you enjoy more, right? Ideation / strategy or implementation / execution? 3, 2, 1.
Oh,
both are the same.
Again.
Yeah, same. Yingfei, do you have anything to add on that? Any elaboration?
I think the strategy is always something where you're able to, number one, see the big picture and understand what is the bigger issues and trying to address to that issue first. And then after that, breaking it down is just a matter of how could we do the implementation and at what point, at what timeline that we do the implementation. If we go straight to implementation without truly understand what is the bigger picture, sometimes even though it could be a good implementation, but it does not necessarily serve the purpose. So yes.
Thank you. Last question. This is the last one already. So which one is harder for you guys? Prioritizing product features or going live on schedule? Prioritization of product features or going live on schedule? 3,
Which
2,
one is tougher, is it?
Harder, yeah, tougher. 3,
okay.
2, 1. Prioritization, going live on schedule.
Oh, ooh. Different answers. Now, both of you have to elaborate because they're different.
Kunal, do you want to go first?
Yeah, happy to. I'll tell you, prioritization. I have seen prioritization become so painful sometimes because there are so many opinions of what makes sense to a diverse set of stakeholder groups that you can't even discuss a go live time because the prioritization itself throws your entire sprint out of whack. So I think if you can do prioritization well, you will hit a go live date and it becomes less painful. So I've seen prioritization be a lot more challenging for large complex organizations where there are multiple stakeholders or functions involved than going live.
For me, I think in my industry, prioritization, to be honest, it's not as tough as what we thought it would be. Honestly, when we know the objectives and where we are heading to, prioritization becomes quite easy. In terms of going live, it becomes a bit tough because the timeline itself is very, very short most of the time. It became an impossible timeline. Therefore, the go live on schedule become tougher. However, if we are doing the right thing delaying for example, 1 month or 1 week actually doesn't really make much difference. And as long as I think we have the right prioritization, we have the right product to the consumer, is good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think the session is very nice. I learned a lot, though I got confused along the way, and then I got clarity again back. Yeah, it's really like a blur line between product and project when all the mindset shift that has to come in, right? Even for project manager to adapt to all the things that are changing right now. But I think it's thank you very much, Kunal, Yingfei, and Lisa too, for moderating the sessions, and both of you to share all the experience that you have and also tips for the participants and also me, right? So I think we have hitting to the end of the session. So yeah, thank you, Christy. So I think before we end, we'd like to just let everyone know that we have more talks upcoming, not just for products, also for software engineering and also, software engineering, and also some of the talks on data science too. So do follow us on our Facebook Meetup and our PDX to get more events updates. Yeah. And if you guys have anything that you wanted to ask and regarding one of any events or volunteering even, you can always message us via this channel, or we do have a Slack channel where you can join. We have product talks channel and we have volunteers channel to really engage with, talk to us, communicate with us, and let us know what are other things that you want to see and want to hear from us. And before everything ended, guys, don't leave yet. I see the numbers are leaving, the dropping. So can we have you guys to really give us some feedback, right? So this is a QR code. Can you take your mobile phone and just put your camera on this cute little square thing and really answer the few questions. You only take 30 seconds if it's quick, or 1 to 2 minutes. Yeah, please do it first. And then after that, we will go into photo session.